Well, good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank you all for coming out to this, and it's great to see such a nice crowd that has joined us today. I will be signing two pieces of legislation, which the purpose for which is to make the District of Columbia an even more inclusive city. I want to thank the two council members who are here, Councilmember David Catania and Councilmember David Grasso, and then the third council member, Tommy Wells. That was a nice recovery, wasn't it? Maybe you should sit down the next time, okay? And we want to hear from Councilmember Catania during this process, since he had such an instrumental role to play in one of these bills. I actually don't think that these two pieces of legislation could come at a more fitting time as states work to, and other jurisdictions work to try to create increasing levels of equality for LGBT individuals, especially the right to marry, irrespective of one's gender. The first bill is Bill 20-142, and is a major step forward for the transgender community. And I've been delighted to be able to do a lot of work with the transgender community in the last 2.5 years. The second bill gives the mayor, council members, and others the opportunity to engage in marrying couples. It provides that authority to solemnize a marriage in ways that we haven't had before. And I hope we all, in the wake of those relationships, that we still feel good about it, because in the aftermath, we hope that everybody who we marry gets along well, okay? By signing the birth certificate equality amendment into law, my administration continues to meet the needs of all residents so that they may work, live, and thrive in safe communities free from stigma and discrimination, which I'm sure is a goal that is shared by all of us. We know that something such as a birth certificate not only validates the gender identity or expression of transgender individuals, but it also provides them with the opportunity that they should have guaranteed, should have been guaranteed in the first place, especially around issues like employment and housing. According to the 2011-2012 District of Columbia Transgender Needs Assessment, 44%, it's astounding, 44% of transgender individuals were denied a job for which they were qualified, and 28% of transgender individuals were denied a home and apartment because they were transgender. The law aims to drastically reduce these instances, because I think we'd all agree, especially the group here, that no person should be denied the experience, that experience, and certainly shouldn't have to experience discrimination. The Japarker or Deoni Jones Birth Certificate Equality Amendment Act is a model policy for the rest of the nation, especially bringing about the correction of birth certificates in ways they should have been expressed long before now. This bill is a tribute to Japarker Deoni Jones, who was a transgender woman who was attacked at a Northeast D.C. bus stop that many of you may know, right out in Ward 7, East Capitol Street area, near the shrimp boat. And is Mr. Bethea here? Oh, right in front of me. Excuse me, Mr. Bethea. I wanted to acknowledge you, sir, for your steadfast advocacy on behalf of, as you call her, Japarker, and the work that you have done to keep alive her memory and to work to bring about equality and to rid certainly our city of the discrimination that we have seen involving transgender women. So Thank you very much for what you have done. And there are many other champions who are in the room today, especially for LGBT rights generally here in the city. I like to think of us as one of the most forward-thinking jurisdictions in the nation. We certainly were in the forefront in terms of marriage equality. I was the chairman of the council when we did that, and there's at least 2 members in here who were members of the council at the time, Councilmember Catania and Councilmember Wells. And it became law in December of 2009, and it's fortunately becoming commonplace now in the nation, but it wasn't so commonplace at the time. I well remember people yelling and screaming out in the hall, you know, and telling us we were going to hell and all other kinds of places. Well, fortunately, we're still here, and I'm absolutely as convinced today as I was then that we did absolutely the right thing. And I'm glad that the District of Columbia was in the forefront rather than having to tag along behind the rest of the nation in doing the right thing. And certainly we're doing the right thing on the birth certificate bill as well. With that having been said, I want to ask Councilmember Catania if he would come up and say a few words, because I know this has been a hugely important policy initiative for him and piece of legislation. Councilmember Catania.
I want to make sure my phone is off. But I want to take a picture first. All right. You going to join me, Mr. Mayor?
Sir?
You're going to take a picture?
Oh. You want me to stand here or over there?
Well, stand with me now. I'll take a picture of you. Right? All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
You know, I've got an addiction to these. You know, my partner asked me, how can you have 4,000 photos on your phone? And that's how. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for inviting us all here today and for your support of these measures, which we never take for granted, but understood we would have your support from the very beginning. And so let's thank our mayor for his support, not only of these measures, but you know, as chairman of the council, at every opportunity when it came to support all the rights of our residents, we could always count on our then chairman and now Mayor Gray. Mayor Gray, thank you. Thank you. So we're here for a celebration. We're here for a celebration. One of the bills the mayor mentioned is named after one of our residents who was murdered because of the way Japarker chose to live his life. As Deoni Jones, we understand through stories from his mother and father who have been fierce advocates on behalf of their child what kind of person she was. And we know that because we know the type of parents Japarker had, just extraordinary people. It was a tragedy that a person is murdered simply by choices, because of choices that they made. And I wish we could say that Japarker's death 18 months ago this Sunday was the end of violence against the LGBT community. But just as recently as last month, we had a very serious spat of 10, I believe 6 assaults in a 10-day period, 4 of which involved transgender community. So the purpose of today's work is to basically make sure that the public understands that this community and our government will not tolerate violence against any member of the city, regardless of any of these isms that divide us. I want to thank Andy in particular for her advocacy on behalf of this bill, and members of the Gay and Lesbian Task Force, or Gay and Lesbian Activist Alliance, the National Task Force, etc., for all the advocacy that went into this. I think the bill that came out, Mr. Mayor, is stronger than the bill I introduced, and you know, and I appreciate the good work on the part of many, including the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Wells, who, along with his staff, made the bill better. And that's really the hallmark of democracy, you know, is that the process makes work better. And the fact that this bill not only secures the rights of individuals who are born here to live as they see fit, but we've opened the door, as you know, Mr. Mayor, to others from around the country and world who wish to come here and have the benefit of a birth certificate that reflects the life that they wish to live. And that's not too much to ask. Mr. Mayor, I just want to say two other things. This is really a celebration of the life of Japarker Deoni Jones. That, she was taken from us by a person who still awaits trial and that, like all Americans, is entitled to due process. But I hope we keep attention on what happens with Gary Montgomery, and we hope that justice is served. This trial is taking longer than some of us would like. I wished it would have been prosecuted as a hate crime. It was not. I think that's regrettable, but we're all in a free country, allowed to have our own opinions. And I have to say, Judine Jones, Deoni's mother, is a real inspiration. In so many ways, she reminds me of my own. And I've shared this story at every opportunity because it really does help inform who I am as a person. When I was younger, I met my first transgender individual when I was 4. It could have been 3, but I have a hard time with this. Her name was Lou Baby, and she was a customer at our stores in Kansas City, and was perhaps the most beautiful woman you'd ever see, and was the first homicide in Kansas City on January 1st of 1983. So shot dead in the street. I never forget my mother and my aunt coming back from her funeral, furious that they couldn't find Lou Baby because her family had decided to dress her as a man. And so they didn't recognize her. And, I remember just the anger, because this was a valued customer and friend, that her last wishes were not honored, to be buried as she saw fit. Deoni did not have that type of family. Deoni had a family that loved her, tried to understand, and did understand, and to this day advocates for people like her. And what a lucky person. What a lucky person. And so this is as much a memorial or a designation for the Jones family as anything, Mr. Mayor. And I really appreciate you having this ceremony here to acknowledge them and to acknowledge their voices. They had a child taken away from them. No parents should ever have to endure that. But to take that pain and turn it into such constructive advocacy is really the sign of remarkable people. So, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate your allowing me to say a few words today. I'm really pleased with these measures, but there's still work to do. All right? Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Council Member. I also want to thank the advocates. I too want to thank Andy Bowen, who was involved in this effort. I want to thank Lisa Mote from the National Center for Transgender Equality, and my dear friend Ruby Corrado, who runs Casa Ruby, and really has. I've worked very closely with Ruby over the last couple of years, including a session when we worked together to put together an employment training program for people who are transgender. And we've now had 3 cohorts of training. We had 3 cohorts that were separate and distinct as transgender training programs, and now we've integrated that into the larger empowerment program. So thank you, Ruby, also for what you've done to move the cause along in the District of Columbia. The second bill, as I mentioned, is the Marriage Officiant. That's a great term, isn't it? A marriage officiant. It means you can perform marriages, right? Amendment Act of 2013. We again, have been at the forefront of expanding access to marriage, as we all know, especially with the work we did on marriage equality back in 2009. And this will, I think, continue to move us in a progressive direction. We'll modernize our law, solemnizing marriages here in the District of Columbia. This bill authorizes a civil celebrant, a temporary officiant, the mayor and every council member can now perform marriages. That is an awesome responsibility to engage in, and I'm looking forward to my first. I don't know who that will be or a couple that will be, but I'm looking forward to it. The current law requires that a marriage be solemnized by a religious celebrant, a judge, or a designated clerk. So we are expanding that opportunity. I won't go into all the details associated with how the bill works, because that is really the essence of it. But I'm glad we're able to do this today, and I'm glad we're able to sign both of these bills in tandem, because they do embrace, embody, communicate fundamental rights that we are affirming here in the District of Columbia with both of these bills. So I would ask the council members and anybody else who would like to join me at the table as we sign the bills. Certainly the Deoni's family.